Hello and welcome to the Weird Record Club, where we look at the records that the internet doesn't really reach. So the weird, the wonderful, the wacky, the funny, the outrageous, the psychedelic, all that stuff. Anyway, today we are exploring some roots music, and that is plant music. Music to keep your plants happy and healthy, and that's by Baroque Bouquet, whoever they are. So I picked this up for a quid on a flea market a while ago, and I saw it, great cover with all these lovely wax cylinders here, helping this array of plants grow. Now, if you've ever wondered what kind of music plants like, well, so did I, and that's why I bought this strange looking record. Some of the titles we've got: March of the Chocolate Soldiers, Silver Queen, Remembrance of a Country Garden, Wandering Dew, Ode to Philodendron, Baby Tears, Swedish Ivy, Moss on a Raft. So anyway, those are the titles. Now, it is basically a Baroque string orchestra playing easy listening music, and here and there there's a little bit of a gurgling synth. Nothing much to write home about, but that apparently is what your plants like. Now, on the back sleeve there are some notes about scientific experiments where they played plants different kinds of music to see what kind of music plants like, and guess what? They found that plants love Bach, they love sitar music, but they can't stand acid rock or percussive music. So if your houseplants are dying, it's all that acid rock you're playing. You need to get your Ravi Shankar out. Anyway, there's not much more to say about this album, really. It's a quirky curiosity, but I did have a look at the academic literature on music and plants and how it affects their growth. And I went through 17 papers in which all of them did experiments where plants were divided into different chambers, and some of them were given silence and some of them were given different kinds of music. And this to see what happened. And they measured things like growth rate, biomass, flower size, and all these metrics that you might think of. So they measured all these, and they did it. The experiments looked at peppers, lettuce, spinach, roses, and several others. So what I found, this is my unscientific and unmethodological meta-analysis of those 17 papers, was that plants tend to grow better when they're played Indian sitar music or Indonesian gamelan music or verses read or sung from the Quran. Rock music, they hated it. They didn't like it at all. Now, one of the interesting things is that all the studies that showed plants love Indian music tended to be done in India. And all the studies that showed plants love Indonesian gamelan music were conducted in Indonesia, and all the studies that showed plants grow better when listening to verses from the Quran were carried out in Islamic countries. So is that reason to be suspicious? Well, it might be, but one study that I think, and nearly all the studies, almost all of them, were from India and Indonesia. It seems to be a bit of a thing there. Now, one of the studies that wasn't from India or Indonesia that's worth looking at briefly, it was by Barton and colleagues, and it was published in Ecology and Evolution in 2018. Great title for an academic article. It was called Testing the AC/DC Hypothesis. Rock and roll is noise pollution and weakens trophic cascade. And in the experiment, they set up this little ecosystem where they had these soybean plants, and they had the aphids that fed on the plants, but they also had the beetles that fed on the aphids. And they set up this little ecosystem as a control group with silence, and another one with AC/DC song Rock and Roll Ain't Noise Pollution. And what they found was that rock and roll was indeed noise pollution. the plants suffered when AC/DC were played while they were growing. And it turns out that what seems to be happening is that the loud rock music makes the beetles less effective predators. So that means the aphids populations grew, and that negatively affected the plant. So was it the bass, or was it the drums that were putting off the predators? Who knows why? Whether it was the screams, was the electric guitar. And do plants have conservative taste? Do they just like music from their own country? Were there methodological flaws in these studies? Well, who knows? Anyway, I think I've squeezed enough out of plant music for now. So, Plant Music by Baroque Bouquet. Interesting, strange, quirky. It's not going to change your world. It might grow on me, though. All right, bye-bye.